activity 3.6, hardworking in the hardware store. Again, we are working on different graphs and we are analyzing them, understanding them, and then thinking about what the values mean. Your friend Aiden got a job working at the local hardware store. He created the graph shown to track how much money he makes for a given number of hours. Okay, so along the x-axis is hours worked. Along the y-axis is the amount of pay. Okay, and it looks like it goes up at a constant rate. It starts at the origin, and that makes sense because if you don't work any hours, you don't get any money. All right, and so values for Aiden's graph. So for 0 hours worked, he gets 0 pay. For 5 hours worked, well, I go to 5 here, I go here, and then I go across. And it's hard to say exactly, but I'm going to say $37.50 because I have the answer key in front of me. But it's just under 40. For 10 hours worked, go to 10 hours, go across to this one. And again, it's hard to say for sure, but I'm going to write down $75. And then 15, I go to 15, go to 15, I go across. It's hard to say for sure, but I'll say $112.50. And then I'll go to 20 hours, and then I'll go up, and then I'll go across, and it'll be at $150. Okay? It's because he's making a pretty consistent wage. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to knock that off. How can you tell by looking at the graph whether the graph displays equivalent ratios? Okay, so these are equivalent ratios. He gets the same amount per hour. Okay, and so first, it is a straight line. It goes through the origin. And this is for next year, but this shows proportionality. Okay, when there's proportionality, that means all of the points on there are equivalent to each other as well. And so I could say for you get $75 for 10 hours, and that's the same as $150 for 20 hours. I could multiply both of those by 2, and I would have equivalent ratios on this graph because he makes the same amount of money per hour. All right. Define variables for the hours worked and Aiden's pay. All right. So when it says define variables, we've had this before. We say let H be the number of hours worked let P be Aiden's pay. So we just say what the variables are and what they stand for. Write an equation to describe Aiden's graph. Okay. So Aiden's pay is he gets $7.50 per hour. So it's $7.50 times the number of hours worked. Okay. I know that because if I took the fact that he made $75 in 10 hours, I know that in 1 hour, he would make $7.50. Okay. And so that's where I would get the amount of money he makes per hour. I scaled down the ratio because they're all equivalent, because they're all on the same line, and it shows proportionality. Okay. Number 5, use the tool of your choice, equation, graph, or a table, to answer each question. Approximately how much money did Aiden make if he worked 15 hours this week? Okay. So I'm going to use the graph for these. And so in 15 hours, I go to 15, I go across, and I believe I said before that it was $112.50. Determine the exact amount of money Aiden made if he worked 12 hours this week. Well, to get the exact one, I would kind of want to use the equation, but I'm going to kind of think about it as maybe the table as well. If it was $7.50 for 1 hour, I would want to scale it up to 12 hours. So it times both sides by 12. Pardon me. Take out my calculator on my phone, and I take $7.50 and I times it by 12 hours to get $90. Okay. Approximately how many hours did Aiden work if he made $50 this week? I'm going to use the graph for this one. So I go to $50, which is right here. I go across until I get to the line, which is right there. And then I go about down to see that it would be just below about 7 hours, just under. Okay. Determine the exact number of hours Aiden worked if he made $152.50. So I'm going to kind of use the table. So I know it was $7.50 for 1 hour. And I know that it was $152.50 that he made. And so I'm going to use my calculator again. Mushi! Take 152.50, divide it by $7.50. And so it would be 20.3 repeated, which is 20 and a third hours. And a third is 20 hours and 20 minutes. Okay. How did you decide which tool to use to answer each question? I used the graph. If it said approximately, I used kind of the table with equivalent ratios. I used equivalent ratios. Scaling up and scaling down for exact answers. Okay. I didn't really use the equation, even though I could have with one-step equations. Okay. And so this was activity 3.6. Once again, we're looking at graphs and we're understanding them. We're trying to answer some questions about those graphs. In this one, this shows proportionality. It shows equivalent ratios. And so it brings us back to our work on ratios from earlier in the year and also our work with one-step equations. This was activity 3.6.